On the Back of the White Hart by Angelee Sailor Anderson. Read by Stanley Anderson. From where she lay in her wicker cradle, Nancy heard a tapping of antlers on the cottage door. The baby's eyes grew round with interest as the door glided open, and a great white hart stepped over the threshold. She did not know yet that harts are seldom seen in the houses of men and women, so she was not afraid when the beast walked softly past the fireside rocking-chair in which her mother slept. The hart leaned over the cradle. The sweet scent of his breath made Nancy giggle with contentment. "Come with me, little Nan," he whispered. His voice was stronger than her father's, yet more tender than her mother's. She was not afraid when he scooped her up with his antlers and carried her away. A swift stream ran past her parents' cottage. Along it the white hart trotted with Nancy's cradle perfectly balanced upon his back. She could not see what was on either side of her or what was beneath her, but above her she saw the glossy leaves of woodland trees fluttering in the sunlight. She saw red-headed woodpeckers knocking on oak trunks, and heard the chattering of magpies as they flitted from branch to branch. The hart's gentle pace had almost put her to sleep when she felt a cool mist kiss her eyelids. Opening them, she saw above her a shimmering rainbow of water as tall as the sky. The hart passed beneath the waterfall, and as he did, a scattering of drops touched Nancy's forehead. They sparkled there like precious jewels until they dried, and the skin where they had rested sparkled ever afterwards. Behind the falls was a wall of rock, and in the rock was a narrow opening. Through this the white hart bore her into a cave filled with blue stalactites and green stalagmites. At the rear of the cave stood a giant throne with 4 bronze lions surrounding it. Behind the throne was a heart-shaped door. The hart trotted up to the door and breathed on it. It opened down the middle, and Nancy was carried into an enormous chamber through which flowed an underground river. Bluebells and buttercups grew along its banks. Moored to an ebony post was a gondola painted with tropical birds. Into the gondola the white hart stepped carefully and cast off. The chamber's ceiling was covered with mirrors, and as the boat sped along, Nancy saw the reflections of fish that resembled every breed of cat and dog. The fish poked their muzzles through the water's surface and blew bubbles. As each bubble burst, Nancy heard a mew or a bark. After a while the gondola passed into a larger chamber, and here towered a subterranean forest. The trees were draped with plum-colored vines, from which albino monkeys swung to and fro. The chamber had its own sun, deep orange, which changed slowly into a pale silver moon. In and out of the moonbeams flew bat-sized butterflies with phosphorescent wings. Nancy reached out her tiny fist, and a butterfly lighted on it. Just then the gondola paused where the river divided into 2 forks. The right-hand fork ran up a steep hill, and Nancy was not surprised because she did not know yet that water with no magic in it only runs down. There was an archway at the top of the hill, and through it shone the flickering of 1,000 flames. "Do you see that arch, little Nan?" asked the white hart. His voice seemed more wonderful to her with every word he spoke. "Go," answered Nancy. "Beyond it lies my banqueting hall. We'll dine together there one day, when you are old enough to climb onto my back without help." Then the hart sang 3 clear notes, and the gondola followed the river's left-hand fork out of the cave and into the woodland stream. The stream rushed Nancy home to her parents' cottage, and the hart returned her cradle to its proper place. He left her smiling there, where her mother still slumbered, and the fire still burned bright. Nancy grew, as babies will do, into a young girl. Her mother sang to her of a fabulous deer with antlers of gold, and her father told her stories of the most beautiful beast of all. But she did not remember her ride on the back of the hart except in her dreams. One day, when Nancy was 14, she was digging up turnips from her vegetable garden beside the stream. She heard no drumming on the ground, no splashing in the water to warn her of his coming, but as she reached for a turnip, her hand lighted instead on a gilded hoof. Trembling, she raised her eyes and saw the white hart in all his majesty looming above her. His antlers, 7 tines on each, were as dangerous as swords of heroes and as safe as the wicker cradle that held her baby brother. The hart's eyes were the purest blue she had ever seen. "I know you," she said simply, for she did, though she did not remember how. "Yes, Nancy," answered the hart. "You came away with me once, long ago. Will you come with me again?" "Yes," whispered Nancy. "Oh, yes." And standing, she laid her hand on his powerful neck, and he stooped down for her, and she mounted him. As she galloped with him through the trees, thinking that she ought to fall, but feeling perfectly secure, she saw again, as in her babyhood, the dancing leaves and heard overhead the piping of birdsong. But now she saw also the wood anemones and the wild periwinkles along the Hart's path, and heard the sleek rabbits and the bristly boars going about their creaturely habits on either side. Then ahead of her Nancy saw a waterfall, so high that its many colors seemed to pour down from heaven. In an instant she remembered that she had seen it once before, long ago, when she was new. In that same instant the Hart gave a mighty leap, and she felt gem-like drops lie on her skin again, all warm and sweet with joy. On the back of the White Hart she raced past a lion-guarded throne and through a heart-shaped door, and still riding him she rode the gondola among dogfish and giant butterflies. Every wonder seemed more wondrous to her when she recognized it as an old dear friend. At last, as it had all those years before, the gondola paused at a fork in the river. Nancy blinked when she saw the hill that ascended to the 1,000 fires. "Water does not run up," she said, though she saw it doing so. "Where I am king, it sometimes does," answered the Hart. "Is this your kingdom?" Nancy asked in awe. "A part of it. It is very large." "How large is very?" The Hart did not reply, but only laughed merrily. Then stepping from the gondola, he swam, or perhaps he walked, she could not quite tell, up the watery hill. Candles upon candles, all white, hung from the ceiling and walls, dazzling Nancy's eyes. In the midst of them was a huge table, itself laden with candles, and spread with a white cloth embroidered with blue and yellow flames. The Hart let her slide from his back to a bench at the table. He poured cowslip wine from a peacock-shaped decanter and served it to her in a silver chalice. He laid before her a loaf of bread baked from flour so finely ground that it seemed to her that someone must have spent his whole life making it. And there were tiny wild strawberries with thick cream, and each candle sang to her in turn while she ate. When she had eaten enough, the Hart bade her follow him through the banqueting hall into a round room with a domed roof through which she could see stars. Around the walls of the room there were pictures, some painted, some sculptured, some woven in tapestries. The pictures told a story, and as Nancy followed them, laughing and crying, it seemed to her that the story was one she knew. She noticed that the Hart himself was in every picture, though he was sometimes hard to find. In a little while she came to a picture of a young woman with lustrous black hair and flashing dark eyes. All around the woman, in the air and on the ground and perched upon her shoulders, were creatures that were clearly magical. Sitting beside her and looking at her as though she were the most magical creature of all was a gallant young man. Nancy's heart began to beat in time to a strange new melody. "Who is he?" she breathed. "His name is Roger," answered the Hart. "Do you like him?" Nancy blushed and reached out to touch the young man's auburn curls. "I wish I was she," she said of the flashing-eyed girl. "She is you, Nancy." Beside the picture there was a doorway, and Nancy now noticed it for the first time. Beyond the door she could see nothing but darkness. She wanted to walk through it, and at the same time she wanted to run far away. "Where does this door lead?" she asked the White Hart. "To the rest of my kingdom." "Why is it so dark?" "It looks dark on this side, but not on the other." "Will you take me through it?" "Not now, Nancy, but one day." Then again the Hart stooped down, and again she mounted him, and riding him through another door hidden behind a tapestry, she found herself emerging alone from a hollow tree that shaded her garden when the sun sank low. Nancy grew into a woman, as girls will do. She fell in love, and married, and had a daughter named Phoebe, and her parents' cottage became her cottage. She glimpsed the White Hart in the woods from a distance at times, but she did not ride on his back except briefly together with Roger on their wedding day. Not for many years did the Hart take her again to his kingdom behind the waterfall. But years passed, as years will do, and Nancy's cottage became the cottage of Nancy's daughter. Now Nancy spent most of her days in the old rocking chair by the fire. One Sunday morning, early as she sat there dreaming, she heard a tapping on the cottage door. "Come in," she murmured drowsily, and in a moment the White Hart was standing beside her. "Come with me, lovely one," he said. "Where are we going?" Nancy asked. "To see the rest of my kingdom." Nancy's eyes were still so full of dreams, she found it hard to look at the Hart. The gold of his antlers seemed brighter than she had ever seen it. I was dreaming of my Roger, she explained. I know, the beast answered. He has been waiting for you. Then the hart lifted her onto his back as he had when she was new, and as she rode him through the trees and under the waterfall and into the banqueting hall, she felt that she was becoming new again. At last they came to the domed room of pictures, where the starlight was so full of glory it made her cry. The pictures seemed to have grown dimmer, but she could see the White Hart clearly now in every one. On his back she rode up to the picture of the gallant young man and the flashing-eyed woman. She leaned close to it, smiled, then turned to the dark door beside it. "Are you ready, Nancy?" asked the hart. "Yes," she answered, but her voice trembled a little. The hart turned his head and breathed on her. The sweet scent of him made her fear fly far away. Your Roger trembled at this door too, but once through it he was glad. Then Nancy smiled again and took a deep breath. The hart stepped over the threshold. The darkness opened like a rose into a vision of all the kingdoms that ever were, and Roger was among them. Not many days afterward, Nancy's daughter Phoebe sat in the fireside rocking chair, holding her new daughter in her arms. She had just finished singing to the baby about the most beautiful beast of all. Your grandmamma sang me this same song, Phoebe remembered. You know that you were named for her, little Nan. She went riding away on the White Hart's back 3 Sundays ago, it will be now, the same day that you were born. You'll be riding the hart yourself for the first time one day soon. How soon do you think it will be, little Nan? Coo, answered Nan, and laughed a little laugh. And then came a tapping of antlers on the cottage door.